We're live. We're live. It's good to see people in the house. I see Eternal Umbra. What's up, my brother? Pong Soul's in the house. Nix, Ruben Almighty. Thank you guys for showing up today. I'm very excited about today, honestly, because this show was in the making about a month and a half or so ago, and Lord Sovereign was supposed to be here by then. This man is one of the first guys I wanted on the show, honestly, because I don't think he gets enough props. This guy is part of the Iron Lords crew. You guys know him from the Iron Lords podcast. But honestly, he's one of the most freaking knowledgeable gamers out there. It's my single player brother out there. I love that you're so passionate about the single player experiences. You're so unabashed about it. You talk about it with such passion. And you remind me of myself when it comes to single player games. Yeah. I'm there with you. Even though I've played tons of Destiny, I put hours, thousands of hours into Destiny. And I've played some other multiplayer games before, but my love is single player gaming. But first, I just want to say, hey, hold up. I gotta say, this is Lord Sovereign, everybody. Lord Sov's in the house.
What's so give it up for Fonz, man? Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, this was supposed to happen a long time ago, and let's just say I owe a lot of people appearances. People are gracious enough to want to have you on their shows, and I owe Colt, I owe 108 Dragons, I owe Gaz. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
I know you were in demand, but you just have so little time. And it's funny because I had a guest supposed to come on, but he had to postpone for a week. Mm-hmm. And I was like, who am I going to get? I'm scrambling. And I go, let me try, Lord Sovereign. Let me try. And so I hit him up and immediately he said yes. And I was like, oh, it was the right timing.
Yeah, it was perfect timing again, because the first time I was supposed to come on, I didn't realize that was the same weekend that I was going to go to the Last Stand Media event. So it was like, oh no, here we go again. I messed that up. So and I did that as well with an appearance I had with Sean Capri. So I was like, oh man. So again, having to reschedule, and we just said we would reschedule. We didn't set a time. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, I had other guests lined up because, like the Iron Lords, I like to line up guests in advance. And, it's just one of those things where I was just like waiting for a moment. Well, that moment happened. How was that Last Stand Media event, by the way?
It was amazing, man. It was
no, wrong answer. It was trash. You should have been here at Games Talk Live. That's the right answer.
My apologies.
No, I'm just kidding. No, shout out to the Last Stand Media guys. I have so much love for those guys, Colin, all those guys. What is it? I had, what's his name on the show? Not Colin, but Dustin.
Yeah, Dustin on the show.
Dustin's amazing.
Yeah,
Dustin's amazing. Very level-headed guy and very balanced when it comes to this video game stuff. Even though he's a PlayStation guy, a lot of people, don't give him enough credit for that balance. I love to talk to people that are very balanced. You, sir, are very balanced.
Thank you.
And speaking of which, we have been, I've had all the lords on now. Uh-huh. You were the last lord in the house.
Makes sense.
And but no, it doesn't make sense, damn it, because you deserve a lot, brother. I'm glad you're here, but I get all the back information from these guys, or like their let me know your origin story when it comes to coming together with the Iron Lords, because I've heard from them. I want to hear from you.
So with me is that Cog and I grew up going to school together. We've known each other since the 3rd grade, and we've been friends from the 3rd grade. And from then, it was just arcade gaming, like going to play Double Dragon in the arcades after school, talking about our console gaming stuff. Like Cog had the Master System, and I also went and got the Master System. Then we went on to Genesis. We were big Sega kids growing up, and we just kind of stuck together as a group. And, once we got a little bit older and we were, kind of allowed to go to each other's houses with regularity, just kind of hang out. And this is after high school and everything else. It was just one of those things where it's like everybody sort of gravitated to Cog's house. Cog's house was where everybody congregated, where it was kind of allowed. And it was that space for all of us just to continue that gaming journey together. And so we experienced all of the biggest moments in gaming together.
Yeah.
So, we were, again, friends for a lot of years. And then I went away to school. I was in boarding school for a while. And in that time, King kind of joined the fray. And then I came back into the fold, and we were at that point, we were all together as a group, in addition to a bunch of other lords that, like we talk about Sinister and whatnot, a lot of people that were in our circle. And then, as we got older, and Xbox Live became a thing, then we stopped hanging out in that capacity as much, right? Just in terms of gaming. And everybody goes about their business. And then when COG and Addict sort of brought the whole Iron Lords thing to us. And I remember he had me on as a guest early on, and he had King on as a guest as well. And they had 2 other gentlemen who were Lords as well, who were doing the Destiny podcast. And once they decided to sort of transition to just a general gaming podcast, they realized that sort of their schedules couldn't kind of coincide with what they wanted to do. So they stepped aside, and then COG brought me in, he brought in King, and all of a sudden now we had that same dynamic that we had when we were young. And it was a matter of honestly, maybe a month or so when for us to get our footing and be sort of comfortable with each other again. And the rest is history. Thankfully people like our brand of foolishness.
That's awesome. That's I love hearing the stories from you guys, even though it's very similar from each of you. You each have your own little twist on it. And you being friends with Cognito since the 3rd grade is just insane. Was he always the same kid? Same guy?
What? It's funny when you don't think about it in the moment. When you're growing up, you don't think about it. But in hindsight now, Cog's always been the same. Like, he's always been that dude that people sort of gravitate to as, the guy. He's going to give you good advice. He's going to be a good friend and be there for you.
Yeah, seems like.
And as we started getting older, and like I said, when we were hanging out or not, there were kids that were in our circle that probably didn't come from the best situations or whatnot, but they knew that when they came to hang out with us and play games in that safe space that was COG's home, it was they could forget about all that stuff, and it was just about being with the group and playing those games and having fun, and it was a kind of like a familial atmosphere. So, and that, when you think about all of that in hindsight, and you think about COG now as the world sees him now, right? All these things that I've seen and known about him as a person for all these years, it just really comes to the light now that everyone else gets to see it. And for somebody who's known him so long and kind of has taken for granted that that's him, to see it sort of verbalized by other people, like, yes, that is who he is, and he's never changed. He's never changed an iota.
I could tell, because I've known COG now just for a couple of years or so. But every now and then, like, I'll reach out to him and call him up if I'm going through something or something even serious. That man is a good ear. He will give you some good advice. Definitely one of the best people in this community. Like,
he absolutely is.
He really is. I cannot stress that enough.
When he gets all the love that he's getting now, I love to see it, because it is so well deserved, and there's not a disingenuous bone in his body. There really isn't. And I'm just glad that everybody gets to see it now.
Oh, and one thing too is he's straight up with you. He'll be blunt.
Oh no.
If you come to him with something and you don't even want to hear it, he'll tell you it. He'll be like, no, it's this way. You have to understand.
And King is that as well. King is that.
Yeah, King is too.
That dude that he's gonna tell you how it is. And man, I
just got so much love for you guys, man. Seriously, you guys are amazing people. I know when I was when you guys were in your infancy with the lordsofgaming.net. I wrote an article for you guys, and I remember you were editing my article and stuff, and I was like, man, he's so nice. He's helping me out here, and he's making, making things sound really good, because I'm not really this smart, like, seriously, you guys are just amazing and so down to earth, and you guys deserve all the props you get. The Iron Lords podcast, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's my favorite gaming podcast out there, period. It just is. I love the camaraderie. I love the way you guys are real friends, and you keep it real. The whole time you're doing your show, the way I view it, even when King gets into his bag and everything, I see it as just guys, having a good time, friends having a good time together. For sure. It feels that way, and that's why it's kind of like comfort food in a way when I watch your show.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Awesome.
It's funny because we get people joke with us like, oh, you guys are just an Xbox podcast fanboys or whatever. And it's funny because King goes down that rabbit hole because he knows the reaction he's going to get. And King feeds off of that. He loves that stuff. And so it's, we have that balance where it's like, then I'll challenge him, or he'll challenge me on something else, or COG will challenge all of us. And then Addict will challenge all of us with something. And it's just the back and forth. And the great thing about it is, obviously Cog and I and King, we know each other for a long time, but for Attic to sort of fit in so perfectly in that dynamic, and he's just like, it's like we had known Attic all our lives as well. So yeah, man, it's been a really fun time because, sometimes you listen to podcasts and it's like, the information is there, whatever, but not necessarily the chemistry. And for us, I think that's really been big for us, that the chemistry is, thankfully, is just a natural thing.
Yeah.
And we could just sort of
something
flow and vibe.
that we kind of pride ourselves over at RDX as well.
Yes,
Real Deal Xbox
absolutely.
podcast. I gotta shout them out. My podcast with Dealer Gaming and those guys over there. We've developed a friendship over 4 years. We've been doing that show, and I totally relate to that. Even with some of the newer guys that jumped on board, Zocker, D-Batch, those guys, all great guys. But no, I really love what you guys do over there. And I just want to give a shout out to Hargeet for becoming a channel member. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you so much, man. That's
Hargeet
awesome.
Shani, man. He's everywhere, man.
Hargeet
really appreciate this guy.
Dude, that guy is, look, he's over in your chat all day, and then he comes over to mine. Then he goes to Colts tomorrow. Then he's on RDX Tuesday. Like, this guy gets around. I see him on other podcast chats too. Like, just an amazing supporter. I really appreciate people like him, but there's so many out there to shout out. Gaz is in the chat. What's up, man?
Gaz, love you, bro. I know I owe you. I'm so sorry.
He's like, where's my appearance, Sov? You know what? I have Sov today. That's all I care about right now. I got Sov. Sov, why don't we go ahead and get into some 5 questions, my friend?
Oh, Lord.
Yes, let's play.
You're about to expose me as a fraud right
5 questions. All right, you know the deal. 4 trivia questions. One that's very subjective at the end. You should pass that one, I'm sure. But let's go ahead and get the first question rolling. Yeah, I know. 80s cheesy game show. I love it. So,
yeah, I love it too. That's where I'm from, man.
That's where we're from, exactly. All right, so let the music begin. Here in North America, this console is known as the Nintendo Entertainment System. In Japan, it had a different name. What name was that?
The family computer, the Famicom.
Correct, sir. See, not so bad. You've got one. In Final Fantasy VII, where was Avalanche originally founded? Is it A, Midgar, or B, Cosmo Canyon?
I have to say Midgar.
Wrong, Cosmo Canyon.
I'm not the FF7 guy.
It's fine. It's fine. You're doing okay, 1-1. Not too bad. Not too shabby. Which Sega console sold more? The Sega Saturn or the Dreamcast?
Actually, it's the Saturn, I think.
Correct. The Saturn sold 1.26 million, while the Dreamcast only sold 1.13 million. So 9.13 million. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Let me stop the music there for a second, because I have to just, I was kind of shocked at that myself. I remember they were kind of around the same, but I thought the Dreamcast did better because the Saturn came in at a time where Sega was not doing so good.
Yes.
And Saturn was a console, if I'm not mistaken, that was rushed to the market in North America before it should have. Yes. There was a lot of back and forth between the Japanese side of Sega and the American side. The American side had just pushed out the 32X, and they wanted to continue with that. While over in Japan, they threw out the Saturn, and they wanted to bring that here. Now, I myself love the Saturn. I was a big fan of it. I was a big fan of every Sega console, believe it or not. So, but I was just shocked by that, because when the Dreamcast dropped, it was so ahead of its time. So much better than anything we've seen before that, and it failed. Why do you think that failed, man?
The thing about the Dreamcast was that the Dreamcast also, because of the timeline of the Saturn in the States, the Dreamcast timeline got pushed up as well. So what you got was a machine that was super capable at bringing like arcade perfect ports to the home, and it was the most advanced home console we'd seen at the time. But at the same time, you had the PlayStation 2 on the horizon. And there were many people that were waiting for that. The popularity of the PS1, especially when compared to the Saturn here, made people willing to wait for the PlayStation 2 and not get the Saturn. I mean, not get the Dreamcast. And then I will always say this: the death blow to that to the Dreamcast was the Metal Gear Solid 2 trailer. When you saw that trailer and you saw what the PS2 was capable of, it was over. It was literally over. I've never seen a singular piece of sort of entertainment destroy another thing in one fell swoop. And it was just conceptual, right? Actually, when you got the game, you could do all that stuff in the game, but it was so mind blowing that we were going to get a machine that could do that. That even looking at the greatness of the Dreamcast at the time and what it was bringing to the table, there were many people that just said, I'm not spending the money on this.
Yeah, because, I mean, look, the Dreamcast, it was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first consoles that had a onboard Ethernet adapter.
Yes.
So you can connect online. It was also a console that had VMUs, which those little proprietary little memory cards that also doubled as a screen.
Tamagotchi type thing, the screen.
A little screen. And so like with games like Madden, that's where I loved it. I used to play Madden couch co-op with my friends and my family, my brothers. And when we'd play next to each other, we'd see what plays we were picking on the screen. So when the VMUs came along, you could actually direct to picking your plays on that little screen. And it was private. It was amazing. It blew me away. And I really thought the Dreamcast was here to stay. I mean, it was pretty powerful too, and it had some great games.
It was amazing. Another thing was that how easy it was to pirate.
Yes, that's true.
It came to a point that 6 months in, you could pirate a game and actually burn a disc with the boot sequence on it. So it was just and no additional sort of hardware modifications were needed. So in terms of that, when it came to their need to sell software, that was also just in the dumpster because people were just even people who didn't have a working knowledge of how to do this sort of stuff could get their hands on it with the same sort of ease that you could just go into a store and buy a game. That killed it. That absolutely put another nail in that coffin. So,
and interestingly enough, this is a fun fact. Some people are still making Dreamcast games today.
Yes. There's a store here in the city, one of the oldest sort of game shops here in the city called Video Games New York. That they have a deal with a couple of publishing companies to release games specifically for the Dreamcast. So you'll get brand new Dreamcast games. They have, I think, 2 or 3 that are specific to their sort of publishing label, and it's just cool to see brand new games, coming out for this dead console.
Yep.
So I love the Dreamcast.
You know what? This is going to be the longest 5 questions in history. So let's get back to the game. All right. So this is your 4th and final trivia question. You're 2-1. Not too bad.
Okay.
In Red Dead Redemption 2, name the strong female character who joins the Vanderlyn gang in the first chapter of the game.
Miss Adler, Sadie Adler.
Correct, sir. See? 3 out of 4. Now here's your last question here, and we don't need the music for this. Favorite gaming experience of all time, sir? It could be favorite game or experience surrounding games.
Favorite gaming experience of all time. I think the one that resonates most with me, that sticks with me, is the first time I brought home the original Xbox. And it was just, I remember so vividly, like King was with me and a couple of other friends with me, one of which passed away. And it was just like the excitement around getting that console home. And for me, I picked up 3 games that day. I picked up Project Gotham Racing, Dead or Alive 3, and Halo. And I played them in that order, in order of excitement for the game, right? So I went into Project Gotham. I loved it. It was, kudos, and Project Gotham I loved so much. Then I went to Dead or Alive because I was like, I love Dead or Alive from the Dreamcast days. Dead or Alive 2 was one of the biggest, most beautiful games you see on the Dreamcast, in addition to Soul Calibur. And so I loved Dead or Alive, and 3 was just such a graphical showpiece. But then, I figured like 7:00 at night is when I finally sat down to play Halo. And the very first time, the opening sequence is obviously like action packed, and you get to see a lot of the physics and the different type of Covenant and whatnot. But the moment you land on Halo and you walk out of that crashed pod and that crashed ship, and you see the vastness of the world, something you hadn't really seen before. And everything was hitting, like the atmosphere, the gunplay, the fact that you didn't know what was going to be around the corner. I had to stop the game, and I called COG and I called King. I said, have you guys played Halo yet? Have you gotten to Halo yet? And neither of them had. I said, put everything down that you're doing. Yeah. Go play Halo. You're going to understand what I'm talking about. And it was such a transformative experience, just a single player thing. And then I remember the following week, we said, hey, let's get this multiplayer on. And we didn't do all the stuff with the system link and whatnot yet. Everybody just came over to my house and we just did 4-player on one screen. And it was so much fun. Oh, thinking back on it now, it was probably running at 10 frames per second.
On what, like a 36-inch TV?
On like a 32-inch 4:3 tube TV. Yep. And we're all having such a fun time.
Same thing.
And it was transformative in a way that very few experiences stick with me. I mean, for me, single player stuff, obviously, like moments in Red Dead that really resonate with me and stuff like that. But that was one that gave me both. It gave me sort of what the future of multiplayer gaming would be, in addition to those amazing single player moments as well.
I'm kind of blown away. By the way,
thank you.
Right. I'm letting you get that one for sure. Because here's the interesting part, Sav. I was going to tell a story very similar to this while talking about single player gaming, because during that time, right before the Microsoft Xbox came out, the OG Xbox, I had kind of fallen out of gaming for a while. I stopped playing games, and it wasn't quite a year where I totally just stopped, but it was close to a year. I didn't play anything. I didn't care to. I still had all the consoles because I had little kids in the house too, and they would play whatever. But I was going through a rough time. It was like a really depressing time in my life. Okay. And when I heard about the Microsoft Xbox, and I was like, you know what, I'll just pick it up, whatever. Picked up Halo on a whim. Didn't know anything about it. Put that game in, and just like you, immediately when you stepped off that ship and onto the Halo, I'm sitting there going, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about gaming that really resonates with me, single player gaming especially.
Yeah.
Is these moments. Like you and I can talk for days, because there's so many moments that I'm sure I've had with these games. And a lot of people will say, well, it's just Halo. It doesn't have a huge narrative. Like, there's no really deep story. There's a great story there. Don't get me wrong. But what did it for me with Halo was really, at the start anyway, was the music.
Yes.
The music in Halo. That's one thing about games that a lot of people don't even talk about. But music, the soundtracks in games, just like in movies, can suck me in right away.
Absolutely.
And Halo Combat Evolved, that's why it's in my top 5 of all time. Because it pulled me in, sucked me in. And these games, like single player games, they hit you different on an emotional level a lot of times. And it's crazy.
You know what it is? Because when you're by yourself, you have those moments of reflection, even if you're playing an action-packed game or whatever the case. And when you're by yourself and you're focusing on whatever the narrative, the action, you're still with your own thoughts, right? You don't, and depending on what you're experiencing in the game, that could, bounce off of what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your personal life. I've told this story as well about Red Dead Redemption. The first time I played the original Red Dead Redemption, it was for me, it was I didn't play it when it came out in 2010. I played it almost at the tail end of 2012, kind of simultaneously with GTA 5, right? So in GTA 5, you have this evolution of the open world where it's like bustling cities, multiple player characters, and it is immersive in that way, and that it gives you all the sensory overload of what a city is actually like. Yep. Red Dead was completely different, and I was experiencing that at the same time, where Red Dead, there were a lot of things changing in my life at that time. I was getting married. Everything was going to change for me. And I knew that I would have very little time to sort of just kind of exist in a world and soak it all in. And Red Dead was so good for just living in that world and soaking it in and just being John Marston and sort of just listening to the sound effects, like listening to the
Mhm.
soundtrack and just
Yep.
sort of disappearing into that world in a way that a lot of games still are not able to do. I think Red Dead 2 did it even better in terms of being a game that you sort of inhabit as opposed to play. But I tell you,
What?
those
Okay,
moments.
so yeah, yeah. So what is it about Red Dead for you anyway? Because I feel the same exact way with Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2,
Mhm.
where it connects with me on an emotional level. And there was times where I would literally just like uh, ride my horse through,
Yep.
different areas and just take in all the sights and sounds and stuff, and just really, I would just absorb myself in it. It was just so amazing to me. Both games, I did it.
Yes. And I think what it is those are experiences that you and I will never be able to have in real life, right? Right. It's talking about an era that is before us. We won't
Yeah,
be able to
yeah,
have that specific experience. Whereas, GTA, I live in New York City. There's it's a very close proximity to what I experience day to day in terms of the hustle and bustle of city life. Red Dead was something that I didn't know I would love. I didn't think I would love it because I didn't want to play a cowboy game. I was like, I don't like the cowboy genre, quote unquote. Until I just really gave it a shot. And that's one thing, when I do give something a shot, I make sure to to give it 100%. I'm not going to
yeah.
half-ass it. I want to give it 100% shot and then decide whether I like it or not. And with
Mhm.
Red Dead, I said, I'm going to immerse myself in this whole cowboy culture and see if I like it. And what for me was the biggest thing was that I was, for the first time in a game, I experienced something that was that I know is a close proximity to sort of real life in terms of the groundedness of it, the realism
Yeah.
of just the world. But it was something that I knew I could never experience myself in person. And for whatever reason, that coupled with the story of John Marston and him sort of trying to do right and still sort of paying the consequences of his past deeds, it just, the whole thing just
And
resonated with me in a way I did not expect
I
at all.
think I think the biggest differences between, say, something like a Grand Theft Auto, I mean, besides the obvious differences with the
Right.
city and everything, I think the biggest takeaway is that one doesn't take itself so seriously,
Yes.
while the other one has this sense of realism that you don't get from the other. And there was moments in Red Dead Redemption 1. I remember the first time you cross into Mexico, and
Yes.
that song "Far Away," I think it's called, starts
Mhm.
playing. Amazing moment. That just the feeling you get, you're like, oh my gosh, like what is this doing to me? Soundtracks can make or break games for me.
Yes.
And
100%.
that was definitely, I downloaded some of those songs and I listened to them. I still have them in rotation. I mean, they're amazing pieces of music. And,
Yeah.
Red Dead 2 had some great songs as well, and really sucked me in. But yeah, that's the thing that these single player games can do for you.
Yeah.
Is there a game out there that, single player experience that you hold near and dear to you, maybe your favorite of all time?
My favorite of all time. Well, it would have
That's
to
kind of
be.
hard.
Yeah, I mean, again, talking about Red Dead, the Red Dead games really have taken over that spot for me. Before that, it
Yeah,
would
same.
probably be Ocarina of Time. Before that,
Great one. One of my favorite Zelda games from the series, Ocarina of Time, is one of the best. The N64 classic.
it was everything around that game. The same way I think about Halo as a moment in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ocarina, that first 3D Zelda, to see that in action and to see the things you were able to do in that world for that time, it was mind blowing. The fact that they were going to take this 2D game, transplant it into a 3D world. And by that time, we already knew they could do it with Mario 64.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, how are they going to take now this more sort of fantasy based world where the gameplay is completely different and in a lot of ways a lot more sort of complex? How are they going to transplant that? And they did it. They did it in a way that it didn't make you feel like you weren't playing a Zelda game. It didn't feel like it was alien to what you had already played before. And again, that was another moment that before Red Dead, that was the one that for me was like, I can't believe I'm playing this right now. I cannot believe I'm living through these moments in gaming right now.
Yeah, right before Red Dead, for me, it would be Final Fantasy VII.
Yes.
And there's a lot to that game and that story. My best friend at the time, we worked at a casino. We were security at a casino in Vegas, and we were like brothers. We hung out all the time. We worked together. We hung out. Our families hung out. Mm-hmm. And he had a PlayStation 1. I didn't have one at the time. I didn't buy one yet. I was playing N64 and whatever else I had. And one day I went to his house and he's sitting there playing Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, what's that? He's all, it's Final Fantasy VII. And I'm like, okay. And I'm sitting there watching it. And I'm watching him, use the air vehicle. What's it called? Anyway, he's going around. And I'm like, okay. And then, he's fighting all these things. I'm like, that looks pretty cool. And I went out that night and I bought one. I bought a PS5 and a copy of Final Fantasy VII. Really got into it. Loved it. And then we started playing Game Day against each other and all that, those sports games. Remember Game Day?
Game Day, the 989 baseball, MLB.
Yeah. So we played that. And unfortunately, I'd say about 12 years ago, he passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And so that game, like, is like every time I see it, every time I play it, the remaster and everything, the game that we got, the remake, it always reminds me of him. So I just hold that game near and dear to me. Like it's one of the first games I played with him, and like he was a really close person in my life. Like I said, almost a brother. Cerebral Paul says that being disabled, horseback riding was one of the few times he felt normal. Red Dead Redemption 2 takes me back there. Yeah. I can understand that, brother. Like, just the whole freaking the game really does give you a sense of realism there. It's a cowboy simulator.
It's not really a game. It's a cowboy simulator, is what it is.
It really is. And when a lot of people talk about the slow pace of the game, it's like, that was that era. You had to ride across that whole town and that whole entire map to get to point A, or from point A to point B.
Everything is a mosey. You're just moseying about. That's what it is. Like, that's the pace of everything. Mosey.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see a lot of people contributing here, talking about their, emotions for some of the games and stuff. It's really cool. I like when I see a podcast and people share experiences that they've, and talk about these games in a way that is much deeper than just the surface level of, oh, did you play this game? Yeah, it was cool. All right, move on. I personally like that.
I love, as single player gamers, we love to deep dive into what these games mean and how they affect us personally and whatnot. Because again, it's totally different. The multiplayer experience, as fun as that is, since it's shared, a lot of that sort of stuff, if you're playing like a co-op game that does have a single player component, you sort of lose that component a little bit when we have to cater to someone else's play style or something like that. And you're just not worried about, listening to the story and listening to the dialogue. It's very different.
Lucius Augustus says, salute to the ILP, the refined gentleman himself. Lord Sovereign graces us with his presence. And I'll add, over here on Games Talk Live.
You,
love it. I love it. Yeah, Gaz, in your face. No, I'm just kidding. No, I couldn't wait to have you, man. Let's talk a bit about, stuff that's going on in the news right now. And of course, everybody's talking about Avowed right now. We have Jez Corden of Windows Central fame, of course, and Xbox 2 with our good friend Rand Althor. He got to see a bit of this, and he basically outlined what he felt about the game and what it looks like to him. And he's calling it, basically saying that it's Obsidian's sort of Pillars. It's a game set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, if you don't know the games from Obsidian. But it's first person. And he's saying it's more like the Outer Worlds meets, Pillars of Eternity, and it's like Outer Worlds meets medieval fantasy, as he calls it. Basically, he touched on it, saying that there's things like jolting touch spells, fireball spells, stuff like you would see in Pillars of Eternity. But and another interesting thing he said was that it's Obsidian's, if Obsidian's take on Fallout was Outer Worlds, then this is their take on Elder Scrolls. And I love that because I love Elder Scrolls. Are you a big fan of Elder Scrolls in that series?
I definitely am. I think I'm more of a fan of the Fallout games, but
Yeah,
I
me too.
definitely love fantasy and the Elder Scrolls. So I am definitely kind of all in on getting a game that's the best of sort of both worlds in that regard.
Yeah.
So and Obsidian, man, I'm super excited for what this game could be because of the lineage, because of the
Yep.
fact that it's a Pillars game and it's set in that universe. Because the Pillars games are the spiritual successors to a lot of like the older CRPGs, like the Baldur's Gates, the Icewind Dales, stuff like that.
Which
That
I
were
played.
all exactly. We're from that era.
Yeah.
So and those games were sort of based out of the whole Dungeons and Dragons mindset.
Yep.
So with Dungeons and Dragons, it really is about there's a level of creativity that goes along with every aspect of those games where you can essentially tackle a situation in so many different ways because of how those Dungeons and Dragons games play out, where it's like you're just given a whole bunch of options and it's like, okay, run with it, figure out how to get past this scenario the way you see fit, almost like an immersive sim, which I love. So to get a game that's kind of out of that lineage, but looking like a Bethesda Game Studios game is to me super exciting, because I think those older games they appeal to a certain type of hardcore gamer, hardcore RPG player. Whereas once you change the perspective a little bit, now you're opening up the game to a different type of audience where they may not have cared to play this game beforehand. And I think it's the smartest thing to do in order for Avowed to be as big of a game as I think it can be. So I'm super excited to see where they take Avowed.
Yeah.
And Obsidian has shown, like, we were talking about it in our show a little while ago, but it is that thing where they are the closest thing that Microsoft has to their Insomniac, where it's like they're reliable. They
haven't put anything out bad.
No, they haven't. They really haven't. Even the smaller things that people were worried about with Grounded and stuff like that, as small as of a project as that is, there's a market for it, and the quality's there. That's the thing. The quality is there. So yeah, I'm super excited about what this game can be, and I hope I'm right about the fact that it leans into those sort of Baldur's Gate, Dungeons and Dragons, Divinity, Original Sin type game mechanics, because to see that in an FPS game, like in a first-person perspective game, I think will bring a whole bunch of new eyes to it.
I love the fact that he mentions that you can either go all in as a spellcaster, dual-handed spell casting, or one-handed sword, the other hand use spells. I love that sort of thing. I love the different mechanics and different play styles you can do in a game like that. But for me, I'm just hoping with all my heart that this game is an open world game. And the reason why I'm saying I'm hoping is because Outer Worlds is kind of hub world-ish.
Yes.
And I like Outer Worlds. It's an excellent game. Played through it, loved it. But I just don't care for the hub worlds. I like more exploration in my RPGs.
Yeah, I like to get lost in those worlds as well. I don't care how big a game is. I don't necessarily get intimidated by it. I'm not going to say that I'm going to finish all of them, because I don't. But for whatever reason, especially with my limited amount of time to play games, you would think I gravitate towards the smaller games. But for whatever reason, whether it be an Assassin's Creed or a Far Cry or a huge RPG, I just like getting lost in the world. Even if I'm not advancing the story for hours on end and I'm just running around in that world, that's comfort food for me. So I prefer the open world. And one of the things that I really want and hope and expect from this generation of gaming is that even if the worlds aren't as huge and expansive, but if they're denser and the stuff they allow you to do in the world really makes sense and really have, they're not just fetch quests and stuff like that. If they can start doing that more, give me all the open worlds that you want. I want to see that. I want to see density in these worlds.
I'm my favorite genre is third-person action adventure open world games. Period. I love open world games. Like, I don't tire of them like some people do. I get it, but for me, it's just, if I have more to do there in a game, I know that there's something that I'll be keeping busy with. If I like the gameplay loop anyway.
Yeah,
I'll be busy with that game for a while, and that's good. Like right now, I'm playing Far Cry 6. Are you touching that at all, or?
I have maybe 2 hours in. I started it yesterday.
Okay. How are you enjoying it so far?
So in terms of the gameplay, it's Far Cry. and if you like Far Cry, you're gonna like the gameplay. It's funny because Colt's in the chat and he says Supremo. I just got my Supremo, so I haven't actually put it to the test yet. I'm right there where I'm gonna put it to the test. So it's a Far Cry game. That's what it is.
It's a Far Cry Far Cry game. I love it.
I love it.
I'm having a blast with it. You know, I've liked all the Far Cry games. Some more than others, but I've liked them all. Again, you know, it's a big open world game. There's a lot to do. But these new these pets that they brought in, I put them away.
I
put them away. I don't care.
Even Guapo? You're not a Guapo guy?
I tried it for a little while, but to me, these pets just get in the way because I like to go in silent. I like to go in just sniping and do my thing. And I just don't care to have, you know, a pet running around or whatever. I may try them when I first get them and then I'll put them away. But for me, these games are just fun. The shooting mechanics alone are great in these games. It feels good. The guns in this game, you'll see, you're only 2 hours in. There are so many different various weapons you'll find, and some of them do some amazing things. Some of them are just funny, but they work. Like there's this rocket launcher that basically shoots out fireworks, but it destroys. Like it's funny. It's just like these fireworks.
And they have like the Macarena launcher, right?
They have the disc with the Macarena, and that, exactly. I mean, it's wild. It's Far Cry. I don't understand the hate generated by games like this from so many people. I mean, there were so many journalists out there that wrote hateful reviews on this game, like 4 out of 10. And I'm like, there's no way this game is a 4 out of 10.
I think I agree. I don't have an issue with people saying that they're sort of burnt out on it, right? And that being part of their criticism, I get it because since 3, the formula hasn't changed. And in a lot of ways, it's funny because I think kind of their most transformative game was 2. Yep. I think they tried a lot of stuff in 2 that they never went back to. And 2 feels the most like an immersive sim to me, right?
It was.
Me loving that genre. So 3 was where they got the gameplay right, the open world right. They figured out, great villain. So they figured out how to give you an open world that felt like you had a lot to do in it. But again, since it was fresh at that time, everything felt brand new. And they haven't deviated from that formula since then. Yeah. So I can get people being a little bit tired of it, but I don't know, as in terms of numbering the criticism of the game, like giving it a number score, whatever. I don't know that should necessarily detract from the score of a game. If we're talking about scores, I don't really care too much about scores. But if you're talking about scores, I don't know that it should necessarily detract from the score of a game because you're going in knowing what it is. You definitely know what it is, and it's just a matter of whether you're tired of it or not. But to say that this isn't the most refined version of that formula, that would be disingenuous as well, because it is that formula they've been perfecting over a bunch of games already.
Yeah.
So,
and it's the typical Ubisoft type open world game, sure, but they've added a lot to the game. And like when you see all the gear options with all the stats and, the attributes and stuff on them, the things you can pull off, the weaponry, you'll see, they did add a lot to the game, but it's Far Cry. I mean, I expected Far Cry out of this game.
Yes,
that's what I was buying. That's what I wanted. And if it wasn't a Far Cry game, I wouldn't have liked it as much. Colton said I haven't had this much fun in an open world game in a while. Yeah, he's been having a blast with it. We've been talking in party chats while we play, just laughing it up. I
know you guys talked about it last week, and it's one of those things like. You have so many tools at your disposal to sort of wreak havoc. And that's what those games do super well. Like I got over a long time ago caring about the story of a Far Cry game. I know a lot of people were sort of taken aback by the fact that, this is a facsimile of Cuba. And, it sort of touches on certain cultural things that are happening, but doesn't really expand upon them or act like they really care about them in a real way. I got over that a long time ago. Specifically with this franchise, I don't expect anything from them in that regard. They're just going to use it as a wrapper for their havoc.
I did like the storylines in some of the Far Cry games, though. 3, 5 was decent to me. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but it was something different.
Yes.
With the whole cult thing. And then with this one, Giancarlo Esposito's performance is phenomenal. And every time he's on screen, I sit there and I watch the cutscene and I'm like, he's a scary dude.
He's a scary dude.
But like the story, if you just go through the operations themselves, the main story, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. There's some wacky stuff outside of there. Like there's this one mission you'll play through where you have to chase a chicken around where he just goes ballistic and kills people.
Wow.
So it's just insane. Like, but I happen to like the game. It's a big open world game. It's fun. But getting back to Avowed real quick, Avowed, I love games like this, this genre, like Elder Scrolls and all that. I played all the Elder Scrolls, all the Fallouts and everything. And by the way, Obsidian had the best Fallout in my opinion, which is New Vegas.
New Vegas, yeah.
So all the choices and stuff you'll get, the dialogue and stuff. We've seen it with the Outer Worlds. They had a lot of cool choices and dialogue and stuff.
The smartness of the writing, the super intelligent writing. Yes,
good, intelligent writing at Obsidian. And I think we're going to get that here. Because if you look up the lore of Pillars of Eternity, it's really deep,
Yes.
They've got some really deep lore going on there.
It really is.
There's, they're writing, whoever's writing their games is really good. Really good.
I think Avowed can really be, again, Pillars is a game that simply because of how it looks, may not appeal to everybody, even hardcore RPG gamers that have kind of grown up on the Bethesda style of game. So to give them hopefully a game with that level of depth, that looks like a Bethesda game, I just hope that it hits the way it deserves to hit.
Now, do you think that we'll see any of this, maybe like a trailer or something anytime soon, maybe Video Game Awards?
I'm thinking Video Game Awards. I'm thinking Video Game Awards is the prime time to show gameplay of Hellblade.
I think we have to see it.
Yes. So and maybe this, whatever, again, I think Microsoft has kind of gotten over this whole we're not going to show something till it's absolutely ready. I think it they know what that does to the fan base to sort of kind of mobilize them and get them excited when they hear about something. And it's a different level of confidence that they give the fan base as well when they're willing to show something that's still kind of early on in development. And I think, showing that at the Game Awards with that many eyes on it, Keighley's show is, everybody's going to be watching that. I think that'll be big.
Yeah. Okay. So let me clarify. I meant that we have to see Hellblade 2. I think that one we have to see soon.
Yes.
And I think that one will be at the Video Game Awards. I mean, that's where they teased it first. I think it's only natural that they play, show us some gameplay from it. And then maybe E3, we might see Avowed by E3, hopefully. Yeah, I'd love to have both games at the Video Game Award show, but I don't know.
So besides Hellblade, what do you think they would show at the Video Game Awards?
I really don't know. Maybe
you think maybe Starfield gameplay? A smidge
that would
of
be
actual
nice.
gameplay from Starfield?
Yeah, because that's out next holiday, right? Mm-hmm. So why not? So also maybe even Redfall gameplay.
Yes.
Arcane Studios
announce something new that we don't know about. Or just
that too.
Throw that out there. So.
We want all of it. And then, why not just announce an acquisition too? Why not? They got Rockstar, baby.
Baby. Let's do it.
That'll get people really in their feelings.
I think they understand the power of the pop they get from talking about something. They did something that nobody thought they would do, which is, show you the console for the first time at the Game Awards. And it received a massive pop because of that. So I think they realized the power of that show and the amount of eyes on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're surprised by something pretty big that they show.
The Keighley's, I like to call them. I don't even call it the Video Game Awards, really. Because I don't know what goes on there, but it's always a PlayStation game that wins, right?
Yes.
Usually it deserves it. Last year, not so much, in my opinion, but usually it deserves it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The Keighley's, for me, they usually show one or two cool things that interest me. So I don't doubt they won't do the same this year, but it would be nice to see that, something like, just something out of the blue that we didn't even see coming. I want to see something just unexpected. Like, here's a new game and you don't even know about this, just some sort of teaser.
I would love that. I mean, I don't know if you heard the news earlier today while we were actually live. Xbox Publishing said they said something that felt like they were talking about Fable, and they're going to say more tomorrow. And that's just like,
what's up with that?
I don't know. It's not, they were talking about kicking chickens, and obviously everybody turns to Fable when you talk about kicking chickens. So I don't know. It could be, it could be a number of different things. They could be ready to show a little bit of the game, which would be weird just to show it on a random Monday.
Yeah, but I don't think that. But maybe they'll announce some remaster of the old Fables or something.
That would be nice, because they are back compat, but they're still running at 30 or whatever the case may be. So yeah, a nice little uptick to resolution and frame rate would be nice for the old games. Yeah, so whatever it is cool.
Were you a huge fan of the Fable series?
Initially, I was excited for it initially because I sort of bought into I bought into the Peter Molyneux stuff, right? The fact, you're gonna plant this tree and it's gonna be there and it's gonna grow into.
I remember,
and the game wasn't quite that. It wasn't that, but what it did manage to get right that was really endearing was the comic tones, the sort of the Britishness of it, and the comedy with it, and the fact that the story was this sort of coming of age thing where you had this character that grew up and could sort of, it sort of gave you the choice between being good and evil, and how that, in your physical appearance, that was sort of manifested. And it was still kind of before, ahead of its time, but it wasn't what he said it was going to be, which is fine. So I came to love it later, but initially I was a little miffed with what I got in regards to what I was promised.
I wasn't a big fan of the Fable series, and I talk about it all the time, and people like to boo me for it, but no, I wasn't hating on the games at all. I just didn't care for them. Like the British humor and everything really didn't resonate with me in the games. And the whole farting, kicking chickens, it was just like, it was lame to me. But I guess at the time I was already an adult anyway. So it was a bit different.
It's time and place stuff too. Like if you're past a certain thing, like, I hear Addict talking about Pokemon and stuff like that. And I tried, and it's like, and my brother was all in on that growing up. And it was just I was a couple of years too old for it, for me to really care about it. So,
but as I always say though, if they do Fable, they reboot this and it's a really cool looking game, great mechanics, good gameplay loop, I'm all in. Of course I'll play it. I'm going to try it for sure because it'll be in Game Pass day one. Sure. Shout out to King David. I know he likes to push the Game Pass games.
Captain Game Pass.
But I love Game Pass myself, man. There's so many great gems in there. But I just believe that Fable could be a good game. It just depends on what they do, with the game. For me anyway. I just don't want the same old type of Fable, like the same look and everything. I want it changed up a bit.
I that's the thing I worry about a little bit, right? When you think about these teams that have taken over franchises for other teams, their first outing is usually a little safe, right? Just to show that they can do it. You think about 343 with Halo. Though I wouldn't say it was super safe per se, but it wasn't like 100% their own. And what was the other one I was thinking about? The Coalition, obviously, with Gears 4. It was a good Gears game, but it was safe. It wasn't we're taking this and kind of making it our own. So with Fable, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with it. It really is, because I really don't want the old ones. As much as I enjoy them, I would really like a full, like, completely new coat of paint on this, and
me too.
A new sort of perspective on it. Addict is probably wanting to strangle me right now because don't mess with his babies. But
I know he loves the old Fable. Our boy Hargeet in the chat with the $2 saying speculation on tomorrow's Xbox announcement. I assume he's talking about this, what we're talking about now, possibly being Fable. That's what we think. They might say something about Fable. Hargeet, maybe. Again, they may remaster the old games. I don't know.
Remaster, that'd be nice. A lot of remasters going around, and that would be nice.
But if they do show like a teaser or a trailer or something for the new Fable, that'd be awesome too. On a random Monday, just look what's coming. I'd love that. But that's something that you would think they would save for like the Video Game Awards or the Keeleys.
It does make sense that they would do that. Yeah. So
now the last topic I have here, basically, because we're encroaching on that hour mark.
Oh, really? You see how time flies when you're having fun? Like, I didn't even realize.
You realize that? We're sitting here, a couple of single player gamers just talking away.
We could be here all night talking about single player games.
Exactly. Xbox mini fridge. I said the best news for last. The Xbox mini fridge. Okay. So I was one of the ones, Colt out there too, shout out to him, that we both kind of guessed the price. $100 for this, $99. It holds 10 cans of your drink of choice. Pre-orders for this thing come out the 19th. Are you getting one, sir?
I'm not getting one, just simply because I don't, like, my wife would kick me out. Like, this is not fit with the motif. If I had my
just
own,
put it by the TV, just set it over there, in the living room.
Yeah.
When everybody comes in, they see it.
Once I purchase a home and have my man cave space, I'll definitely get something like that. But no, it's not for me right now. But I have to say, man, I just love the fact that, Xbox is, and shout out to Aaron Greenberg and his team over there. And just like the willingness to sort of take some of these things that are just memes sometimes and foolishness and turn them into reality in a way that's like, it's just fun for the community to participate in. And it's just something that, you don't really see PlayStation doing. You don't see Nintendo doing stuff like this. It's so cool that this is a reality.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to get into that topic a bit. Let's switch gears here, because the mini fridge. Okay, you're not getting one. The chat's all getting them, I guess. Shout out to them. Yeah, but you just touched on something where you said that they do some stuff. They're very playful. Xbox. They talk to the community. Very vocal. Lately, they've been a bit more transparent as well on things. How do you think it's going on the other side of PlayStation right now? How do you think they've started off their generation? Do you think they've started off great, or what's your thoughts?
I think in terms of their messaging, it's been messy, because I don't honestly, it's just been one of those things where it felt like at the start of the generation, they said they wanted to see how successful Game Pass was going to be as a whole. And it felt like they said, okay, let's just keep doing what we're good at and we constantly have done in the past, and that's worked for us. Let's do that until we have to pivot. And it just seems like, in a lot of ways, Jim Ryan has had to sort of roll back a lot of statements that he's made.
Yep.
That I think in the back of his mind, he already knew he was going to have to roll back on. When you talk about, we care about generations, this assumption that, all the newest stuff was just going to be PlayStation 5 only. There was no thought of moving these games to PC ever. Forget about, day and date or 6 months down the line, whatever the case, a year down the line. So in terms of their messaging, they made some mistakes that we kind of usually point the finger at Microsoft for doing. So that hasn't been great. In terms of the output of the stuff that we've gotten, I've been pretty happy. Yeah, at launch you get Miles Morales, you get Demon Souls, and you get Ratchet. We're now finally starting to get more stuff. You get Returnal, which some people love, some people didn't like so much.
Well, the rest of the year you ain't getting nothing else. I mean, it's pretty much on that side. It's
on that side specifically for this year, you're not going to get much of anything else. And I think.
Yeah, it's holidays. They normally don't put out games on the holidays anymore.
Right, their big games are usually reserved for earlier. Exactly.
Yeah.
So holidays, you're never really going to get that. They count on their the big third party games, sort of lifting them up in the holiday season. Yeah. So I think in that regard, in execution, they've done what you expect PlayStation to do. In messaging, they've been all over the place, and I think with this last interview with Jim Ryan, I think he's kind of trying to fix that and say, look, this is what we're doing. And again, he's not saying it directly. He's talking about generally what I would like to see in this, that, and the other. He's saying that because I feel that's the actual direction they want to go in. And I think it's the smartest move in order for PlayStation to continue to grow and to continue to provide these amazing sort of AAA experiences that cost upwards of $100 million to make. The ideal thing to do is to expand where you put those games onto. And, having the walled garden in PlayStation 5 and nothing else, when you think about how much these games cost to make, it's not necessarily the best business decision. And the thing about Microsoft is they realized that they pivoted because they had to for a lot of reasons, right? but that pivot has also caused the rest of the industry to have to take a hard look at that business model and be like, this kind of works. And so I think they forced the conversation on the PlayStation side that they maybe weren't expecting to have, at least not this soon. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what PlayStation does to sort of match Xbox, though I don't think they really have to. They can still continue to do things the way they've been doing, and they're going to be fine. And until they're not, and whatever that may be, where Xbox drops a year's worth of bangers in a row, and PlayStation has no answer for that, then maybe they have to pivot quicker. And then on the Nintendo side, Nintendo's just going to do whatever the hell they want. And
they do, and people just eat it up. They just came out with a service, another online service, a premium service for $49.99 a month, where you don't get any way to voice chat with anybody.
I will neither confirm or deny that I am in that bag.
But here's the thing: people will still spend money on it. I heard. I heard so many podcasts talking about it, and a lot of people saying, I'm going to go ahead and get it because I want to play those old Nintendo games, Sega games, all this. I'm like, what? Why? But
I'm guilty.
It happens.
I'm guilty. I'm sorry.
I understand. Nostalgia is one hell of a drug, and it is the way, it is what it is. But when it comes to like the PlayStation thing, the writing's on the wall. They definitely are changing. I said this with Colt last week. The industry itself is changing. Microsoft is definitely one of the reasons why the industry is changing too. They are on the forefront with Game Pass and xCloud right now for cloud connectivity, cloud gaming, Game Pass, playing games as a service now where you are paying $15 a month or $10 a month and you get all these games at your fingertips that you don't have to buy. Is just insane day one. Like that to me is really the sticking point for Xbox and why I primarily play on Xbox now. I was a primarily PlayStation gamer. Last generation PlayStation 4, that I loved it. I stayed there. But now with Game Pass and stuff and having, the world's most powerful console, of course I mainly stick to Xbox now. And that could change in the future, but honestly, I would love to see a PlayStation version of Game Pass.
Yeah, it's just a matter of when they decide that it's worth it for them to be able to offer their games. Again, the biggest sticking point would be their big first-party games, day and date, in some sort of service where you're not paying additional dollars than to whatever you pay for the service. And, at this point, they still feel that the business model for them is to sell those games to you piecemeal and to make those sort of event releases, right? They're big first party games. And I'm not saying that that's not going to work for them, but if you think about a game like a Halo or Forza Horizon 5, which hopefully, these games, the quality bar is super high, and you think about what you pay monthly for Game Pass, in the long term, you're essentially paying, whatever many times the $70 price tag is or the $60 price tag, you're paying to sort of continue to have access to these games. So it's just a matter of for them kind of being willing to accept that, people will be paying for these games over a long period of time as opposed to giving them $60 or $70 one time. And I think
and these games are doing well on PC. Days Gone, it's probably sold more on PC than it did on the PlayStation itself.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing. It's when you see how well these games are doing on PC, you can't not look at that and say, hey, I'm going to keep doing it. So when people were saying, oh, not God of War is not going over there. Hell yes, God of War is going over there.
Hargeet has a funny quote here from Jim Ryan. Who plays old games? Let's put our old games on PC.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That's what I got to say to that.
Yeah, I remember the first quote from him that everybody started kind of pinpointed on the whole thing with with GTA, with Gran Turismo, saying like, who wants to play this? And you'd be surprised. I think for me, the biggest thing about Xbox is the fact that they show that they care about their legacy and they care about providing a console ecosystem for you that gives you access to your entire history with them, essentially. And I think gaming companies for a long time have not thought that way, and thought that the best practices were like, hey, we're going to support X console for 5 to 7 years,
Yep.
and then we're just going to drop it like a bad habit, no matter how many consoles we have out in the wild, and move on to the next thing. And this sort of Microsoft saying, no, we're going to create a fluid ecosystem where this stuff stays with you for the most part. I just think it's just created a value proposition for a lot of people that you can't ignore. It's funny. You listen to a lot of people online saying, oh, I don't care about that stuff, that, and the other. And it's not a lot of people. Sometimes it's the small minority that has the largest voice, and it comes off as that's what everybody's thinking. Yep. But I think the vast majority of people want the best value they can from these consoles if you're going to have this in your house for the next 5 or 6 years. So I think Microsoft is on a great track with this. I think PlayStation is going to sort of follow suit in their own way.
Yep.
And then Nintendo, we'll see what Nintendo does.
They're not following anybody. Nintendo's going to continue to do what Nintendo does best, and that is do whatever the hell they want.
Do whatever the hell they want, and we're just going to
And you're going to eat it all up. We know. I have 2 Switches in the house. I don't use it, at all.
The funny thing is, Nintendo will start to change when the idea of engagement matters to them. I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Yeah.
But they just care that you have those Switches in your house. They don't care about the engagement part yet.
I mean, come on, Solve. People were buying the Zelda Breath of the Wild before they even got Switches.
Mm-hmm.
They were buying out copies.
They were buying out copies of Breath of the Wild. They were buying it on the Wii U first. Man.
It's crazy. Yeah. Well, you know what? We're going to end it here, guys. It's 1 hour and 7 minutes. So, that is the end of the show, folks. But before we go, Sav, thank you for showing up, man, and doing this today. I really appreciate you so much. Honestly, you were an awesome guest, and I heard what I knew I was going to hear out of you, which is some good, intelligent conversation and some really deep talk on single-player experiences, and I appreciate that so much, man. Tell everybody where they can find you, and
First of all, thank you for having me, brother. I knew this was the type of conversation we're going to have, and I've been waiting to have it. I love talking to anybody who loves talking about this stuff. And for me, like you and I, apart from the Mass Effect 2 thing, I think we disagree there. But apart from that, I think we're right on kind of par with the type of games that we like and why we like them. So I really love what you're doing here, bro. I'm so glad.
Appreciate you.
Obviously, you and RDX and the great things you guys are doing over there. But, the fact that you also break away, do your own thing, Colt, the success you guys are having is amazing, and it's well-deserved because you guys, again, sitting down to talk with your boys, it should be the easiest thing in the world to do, and it isn't always that, when you have to sort of perform and be on a podcast and sort of create content, it's not an easy thing. So I commend you, brother. I'm so happy for you. And again,
thank you very much, man.
You're fam with us. This is family stuff.
Yeah. So I consider you guys brothers, man. I honestly,
absolutely, man.
ILP, and I listen to you guys every episode. I listen at night usually, but if I can make it live, I'm there live. Today I was there, and it was just, I love every show you do. I mean, rewind the beginning. I gave this guy so many kudos in his show because, seriously, I can't talk enough about it. You guys are amazing, and I appreciate that love back. Like you guys, honestly, between you, King, the rest of the guys, Cognito Addict, you guys have showed me so much love, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, man. And, it's definitely reciprocated, man. We got so much love for you, man. Again, so happy for everything that you're doing, and so happy to be here finally that I could say yes, because I have to tell so many people no, and it sucks, man, because it's such an honor to be asked to be on these shows, and it's just time-wise, it's really crazy for me. So
I know Colt really wants you on there. I know Gaz does. There's people out there who go, man, I want Sav on, but he can't make it. He can't make it. I'm like, I got him.
Anything during the week or Saturdays, it's tough because that Saturday is a sacred day for Lady Sav. So that's usually sacred unless she's working.
Are you also a night shift guy?
I work 2 essentially full-time jobs, so I'm not overnight,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm literally working from 5 a.m. to
Wow.
oftentimes 10:30, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Monday
That's
through
a lot.
Friday.
Yeah, it's
So
a
it's a
lot of
lot.
hours.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. So then, Saturdays is sort of rest and sort of,
Well,
sort of
kudos to
family
you,
time.
man.
Yeah, but I will definitely catch up with everybody that I owe appearances to, because again, it's a great honor to be asked to be on these amazing shows, and I will definitely be on there. But Fonz, man, I love you, bro.
I
Thank you so much
appreciate
for
you,
having
man.
me. My fellow Red Dead brother.
Exactly.
Always there to defend when I'm not around, and I get the slander from the other lords.
100%. And of course, everybody can find you on Twitter at Lord
Yeah.
Sov ILP. It's scrolling
Yes.
right now for you to see. Lord Sov ILP.
And of course, catch me every Sunday along with the Lords in the Realm at right now it's 11 a.m. Eastern time on Iron Lords podcast on YouTube, and usually it's 1 p.m. But we bend the knee for football. And check out our show today. Today we had Seth Chazelle, who is the director of communications at Xbox. This man has such an amazing career and history in gaming and tech. And he's the perfect person to sort of have at the forefront of how Microsoft and Xbox interfaces with their fans right now. If we talk about the importance of how Microsoft is being transparent with the fan base right now, a lot of it has to do with, kind of his vision and Phil's vision for how, they want the brand to be viewed. And that's it's a big difference from what PlayStation is doing right now and what Nintendo's doing. And I think this is the Xbox we can expect moving forward. So he has an amazing story to tell. So please check that out. And
it was great, man.
Yeah,
really
it was a fantastic show. Yeah. And he went to boarding school like me. So,
you got that in common as well.
Yeah. So it was definitely a good time. But again, thank you, brother. I love being on here.
You're welcome. And thanks to the chat for rocking out with me today. I appreciate you all very much. And of course, for those of you listening after the fact, either here on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, wherever podcasts are listened to, you can find my show there. I appreciate you guys all so much. And until next time, game on, everybody.